That's really cool. Say when, my dear.
Oh, you're good. You're
okay, so I'm going to introduce our guest for today, Susan Younger. She's a consultant, a coach, a speaker, and a trainer. She's also a licensed massage therapist, which when you read her bio, this is a woman who's done it all. And now she's got some really interesting things to talk about. She's going to talk about why our prospects buy versus how we sell as individuals. We had an interesting conversation before the meeting about, can you really sell refrigerators to Eskimos? Is that truly the mark of a good salesperson? Her statistics show that 66% of customers are turned off by sales presentations. And I've been doing this my whole career, and I will say that 66% is probably on the low side. If you go in pitching, the odds of you closing are pretty low. So we're going to hear some stuff today. She's going to introduce us to BankCode, Bank. I had never heard of it before, and I thought I'd heard of every acronym that goes to sales training. I had to look it up. I think it's pretty fascinating. And how to apply this technique to close more sales. It's my great pleasure to introduce Susan Younger.
So I think we've all heard this line that sales is a numbers game. And when you start to think about that, everybody can say, if you want to get more yeses, what do you have to do?
Get more no's.
Okay, so I hope to change your mind on that thought today and show you that it's really more about how you connect to the people that you work with, whether it's in an individual conversation and the only thing you're selling is yourself and an idea, or if you really have a product to sell. That how we connect and build a relationship is really the key to how we do everything in life. So although this was created as a bank for sales idea, what we've discovered through the years is that bank ends up being something that helps people improve not just their working relationship in a sales situation, but their working relationship in life. And that they all of a sudden start going, wait a minute, I'm connecting better with my family. I'm connecting better with everybody I know because I now am speaking to them, not past them. I'm making a connection that really helps them make things happen in their life because it's aiming at them. So companies spend thousands of dollars and millions of hours doing all sorts of training relating to personalities and that. And what they're often trying to do is say, how do you sell? But really what they should be doing is looking at how somebody makes that buying decision. How do they make those choices that make that connection something that's viable for them? So really what we want to know is why they buy. So businesses have two things. Every business has. They've got both the people in the business, the people they work to sell to, and they've got to make a sale. Without those two things and making those things work better in any way, they are not going to have success. So we've always been told, like we started out saying, you've got to get more no's to get more yeses. And that sales is a numbers game. But what if I can show you that to get more yeses, really what you need is to get more yeses. It's not about getting another no. It's about figuring out what it is that will make somebody you're talking to feel trusting and secure in that decision, how they make a choice. Have you answered the questions that they need? Have you spoke to the values that they find important? Or have you turned them off because you've gone after everything in the world that they'd rather not talk about? Have you tried to be that showy person that they're like going, I don't trust anybody that's that happy and that good all the time? Or have you been so driven by, let me tell you exactly how this works, and they don't care? You can have turned them off by either one of those things or both of those things. And knowing who that person is and what it is that excites them will turn this into a whole different game for you. So Robert Kiyosaki, sales is all about what business is. It's that number one skill we all have to have. So we start to talk about sales, and you hear some people say it's a science, and you say to others, and they'll say, no, it's the art. It's that one guy who really can do it, but if you ask him how he does it, he can't explain it to you. Because for him, it's a very intuitive thing. It's the sort of thing he operates on a level that most people don't. So others will say it's a science and it's a teachable skill. It's really kind of a combination of the two. And when you start to figure out what it is that makes somebody else make that buying decision, you kind of can have the best of both worlds. So let's look at these quotas. 67% of salespeople miss a quota. 54% close less than 40% of the business that they're going after. And the guys that really do it well do it 2.5 times better than the rest of them. 40% can't even figure out what the pain is of the customer. So they can't connect to the customer because they don't understand what the customer is feeling. They don't understand what's important to that customer, so they never address it for them. And 48% can't even get to the decision makers because they don't know how to get past a gatekeeper. They don't know how to engage in a relationship, whether it's networking or approaching the business, to make them have a presence that somebody wants to connect with. So any of those factors can be part of why somebody doesn't get what they want. 87% go in completely ineffectively unprepared. They've got their one script, they've memorized it, but they've never once thought about how do I really make the connection to make things work. And that means we've got less than 18%, less than 20% of salespeople that can really make the connection. And then when you start thinking about people saying, how do you connect to the millennials? How do you make, how do they connect to those that are older? We have that whole thing of nobody knowing who the other person is. But if you can get to their values, you really can start to make those connections. So 66%, like you said at the beginning, they're turned off at the presentation altogether. So they're not in any way doing anything but hearing blah, 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 blah. They've stopped listening long before the sales pitch is over, and they're not going to make a purchase. They're not going to believe in your idea. If you're in a meeting and you're trying to share something with somebody that you're really passionate about, there's no way to make that connection happen. So when you look at the fact that businesses spend $5 billion teaching you how to sell, but in no way do they teach you how to figure out how somebody buys, there's a lot that's being missed in the industry right now. So Einstein said it best. Anybody can make things complicated, but it takes a real genius to simplify things. And I think the gal that created this program, who is Sherry Tree, really ended up coming up with a genius idea, in that instead of looking at all the personality profiles that she'd ever done that told her about her, she's like, how do I get one that I can do so that I can quickly see who am I talking to, so that I can talk to them about what's important to them, not what's important to me. Because if I can only talk about what's important to me, I'm not going to connect with everybody. So BANK is the only methodology that has truly scientifically been validated to show you what the buying profile is of your customer. And it can be done in less than 90 seconds. So it can be done quickly, it could be done one-on-one, and I think we only have one gal, Christine's the only one in here that hasn't done that profile already. So what that's telling me is this room is a mixture. We've got people that, if you go by B, which is blueprint, A, action, N, nurture, K, knowledge. This room is a mixture of all of those.
Can you get rid of that thing up in the top corner?
I don't know, can I? I don't know.
Because this is being recorded, so it's, sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry. Just want you to have the best quality video. Thank you, David. I forgot it wasn't your laptop.
Yeah. And I certainly don't want to screw up somebody else's laptop.
Thank you.
So what we've figured out is why they buy and how to crack it in 90 seconds. And those cards are a simple tool that anybody could carry with them. So you could sit down with somebody and share that beforehand. And I'll be more than willing to sit down with somebody and not only let them know what theirs is, but then let them know what mine is so that they understand who we are. So we call that the secret. And the reason we show a cryptex is, if you remember in the Da Vinci Code, you know, you had to crack a code, and if you got it wrong, you were, pardon my language, but screwed.
Yeah.
You know, you couldn't do anything because you destroyed the message.
Right.
So you really had to be precise about it. So Sherry took the time to figure out how to make this happen so that we could see that sales isn't a numbers game, it's a people game. It's how you connect to the person. It's how you connect to them, finding out what's important to them so that you really can address the things that they care about, not waste their time, not try and use language that is manipulating. It's using language that keys into the things that are important to them to help answer their questions in a very honest and straightforward method. So in 2016, the San Francisco State University went ahead and said, we want to see if this is really different. You know, there's lots of personality profiles out there, so how can you really say that this is buying personality, which we call not psychology-based, but biology-based, and that's B-U-Y, why they buy. So they went through and they did a series of tests, and they really defined the fact that what Bank does is unique. It is not like anything else. And although, you know, there's 4 personality profiles in lots of different programs, this one is different than everything else. And if anybody wants the white paper, on the back of my business card is a link that you can go and actually get the paper, download it, and read it for yourself. So we call this the science of Bank, the fact that it isn't just a theory, but it's really been validated. Somebody's taken the time to say, if you script a presentation, would a specific code buy based on the words and the values that are in that, and will they be turned off by other things? And so they did this whole series of stuff that was really amazing to see how you do have these 4 personalities, and they each are triggered by different things. So when you start to think about the fact that the 4 temperaments is really where this all started, it's based on something from 2,000 years ago, but yet it's now been updated to be today. And you can look at all these others that are 4 personalities, but they talk about how you psychologically look at things, and they don't look at how you make that choice. So you might find similarities, but you will certainly still find differences. So Deloitte & Touche said that 60 to 70% of the companies are using those personality profiles to create sales, when they really still need to be looking at why they buy, not how you sell. And if only 18% of the customers will buy from you because that's the percentage that matches your personality, then you're missing 82% of the connections because you don't know how to connect with them. You know, you can walk in a room and sometimes go, man, I just connected so well with that person. And, you know, we seem to have so much in common. It was so easy for me to talk to. And then you meet this other person and you're like, I got nothing to say to them. You know, they don't get me, I don't get them. Or I think I get them, but they seem to like not want to listen to what I've got to say. And what you've really done is turned them off because you're talking from what's important to you instead of how they listen, how they really think about something. So you either haven't answered their questions or you've talked about all the things that they don't care about. And you don't have that opportunity to really connect with them in a way that will help them to be comfortable with the decision you're asking them to make. So cracking that code allows you to understand who you're talking to, what's important to them, and you can discard the things that you know they aren't interested in. You can then create a presentation that results are for their benefit and also for your benefit, because all of a sudden they feel like they've been honored, they feel like they've had all the information that they want. So if you stop and think about it, if you've been talking one code and one code only 1 out of 4 times are you really even getting a presentation that connects to them. And that means that 3 out of 4, 75% of the time, you're missing the connection, you're missing the sale. And if you think about it, that means 75% of the time, you're handing the customer over to your competition. You're losing them because you can't make the connection that's going to help them make a decision. And you're saying, here, come and get this person and sell to them because I can't. And you really want to stop having that as your whole program. So we talk about the fact that whatever is your primary code, that's the code you're talking in most of the time. And if you can learn one more code, then you can increase your sales 200% because now you can speak the language of 2 people. If you learn something about 3 different personalities, you're increasing it by 200%, and if you can learn all 4 of them, you've increased it 300% because now you speak to everybody. So when you get to that point, it's the system. It's the how do you put this all together? How do you not just know who they are, but how do you start to identify the things that are important to them and the values that will give you all 4 of these, the blueprint, the action, the nurture, and the knowledge. And when you looked at the cards, you'll notice there were words on all of them. And everybody will find something in those that they relate to, but everybody found one and found it very quickly as to what that is. So it's not something you have to go, geez, how am I gonna find this out? It's real quick, it's real fast. And when you start to look at it, you see that the blueprint is the person who's very much structured. So we say that's the person inside the box. They like the rules, they like structure, they want to know there's a system for solving the problem. They want to know you've got the credentials that fit this, that your title and stuff. You are certified to be somebody they want to listen to and stuff. So blueprint very much ends up being a lot of times the person that'll greet you with this standard handshake. You know, they do things in the way that they've been taught by society, by family. Their very core values are that structured system. And so the action are the ones that we say they don't even want to be in the box. They just assume there wasn't a box. They are much more about how fast can we get this done? What's the bottom line? Who cool, who wonderful, who exciting is out there already engaged in this. They want to know that it's something that gives them credibility, makes them the rock star. They need to be the one that's the center of interest. And they're the ones that when you stop and think about it, a lot of times they're the great salesperson because they love to be the show. They love to be the one who will come up and talk to you immediately and very fast. And if you start boring them with the details, all that stuff that the blueprint wanted to know, you have lost them immediately. And you can pretty much see these people in the rooms, the athletes, the rock stars that are out there. They're high-fiving each other, they're fist bumping each other, they're talking fast, they're making things happen. And then you've got the nurture, which we say, those are the people with the heart of gold. They would sooner give it to you than try and sell it to you. They are so used to taking care of their community, making sure that everybody is served, that although they have a great mission in life, a lot of times those are the people that it's very hard for them to ask for the sale because they don't want to offend, they don't want to create conflict, they really want to make sure that everybody's taken care of. So frequently, they don't take care of themselves first, they'll take care of everybody else. They're the people that want to know that that company has a purpose beyond just making money. They want to know that that company supports charity. They want to know that that company supports and takes care of their people. And they're the ones who will recycle that box. They will make sure that everything is utilized and taken care of. And of course, they're the ones who are going to come up and give you a hug. And a lot of times you can see people backing away from them like, I know you want to hug me, but I don't want to be hugged. So you can see the conflict they can get into without even thinking about it. And then we've got the knowledge people. The knowledge people are the ones who created the box. They're the ones who are the deep thinkers. They can see from the smallest detail to the biggest dream, and without a lot of those knowledge people, things wouldn't happen. But frequently, the knowledge person is the guy that's sitting in the back of the room and nobody knows how to talk to him. And he's not really feeling like he needs to connect with everybody because either A, on a negative side, people think he's a know-it-all who doesn't feel like he needs to talk to anybody, or B, he feels like I'm smarter than all these people, but yet nobody will recognize what I contribute. He's the one who can think about how to make it happen. When the action guy's screaming about, I can go from here to there, the knowledge guy goes, yeah, but I know how to do it. You know, it's like if you saw the movie Hidden Figures, the gals that were doing all the technical stuff and the rocket scientists that were there, those were knowledge people. The astronauts, the guys that were like going to fly that rocket, they'd have been the action guys. Now that action guy couldn't have figured out how to get that plane built, but he was the one who was going to go say, I'm going to fly to the moon. You know, so you get those two people, they really need each other. They need to be able to engage in a conversation to support what they want, but frequently they can't because they're talking parallel planes instead of figuring out a way to engage with each other. So when you start to learn the languaging of bank, that's when you really can start to integrate it into your life. So when Sherry was thinking about it, she was like, well, how do I come up with a greeting? And of course she thought of the Vulcan salute. You know, who else would be better to say knowledge? But really, when you meet knowledge people in the real world, they're the ones who will typically hand you a business card. And they want you to hand them a business card back. And they want you to do that without touching them at all. You know, and you can frequently see this in a room. You know, somebody will walk up and they'll hand you a business card. They barely even say anything to you. And they're looking to see what's on your card before they actually engage in conversation. It's not because they aren't articulate, but frequently they are so much seeking out wisdom and knowledge in all forms. Knowledge people are the ones that everybody says is the hardest one to sell. The reason they're the hardest one to sell is they need to validate the reason for the purchase themselves. They need to be able to dot every I and cross it and make sure that what is being told to them is truth, is fact, before they will proceed with anything. So it's not that you can't sell them immediately, but if you don't provide them enough information for them to validate the information themselves, they are not going to engage. So, what's your code? We've done that today, and I will make sure that each of you get the report sent to you that goes into the detail of why certain things are important to you, what are the tripwires that will stop you from making a decision, and what are the triggers that will help you to move forward with one. But the great thing about this program is it also, if you're doing it in your business, you are able to track what your customer's doing. You get a report, they get a report. So if you think about it, with 4 codes and all the various combinations, there's really 24 codes, not just 4. So if you take blueprint as first, all the combinations of the other 3 codes behind it. So that's why it frequently will look like it's a numbers game, because in that case you can start to see it's only 4% of a chance that you're really connecting with somebody, 1 out of 24. And for the knowledge people, that's 1 out of 4.16. It's a little more specific, but 4% is close enough most of the time. So in 90 seconds or less, you can crack the code. You can start to think about why you would make a presentation in a different method to somebody than what you intended to do. So this gentleman, Darren, had a sales meeting with the board of a high-tech company, and he was selling software. And so he had put together a PowerPoint presentation, and he thought, high-tech, I think I need to go in with a knowledge and blueprint-based, presentation. And he called up Sherry and he says, I kind of feel silly. Can I really use these cards in a situation like this? And she said, sure. And he says, okay, well, I'll give it a try. So he pulled out the cards and he handed them around to everybody on the board. And everybody on the board got engaged instead of turned off. And they all of a sudden were going, what's your code? Oh, I knew you'd be that. They were really talking to each other, not just to him. And he realized that he was talking to people that the majority of them ended up being nurturing. And that was the last thing he had actually put into his presentation. So he shut down his computer. He spoke from the heart about what this program could do to help this business serve their clients. And he closed a $250,000 sale in a way that he knew if he had presented what he had brought in terms of facts and information, he would have lost it. So sometimes we will judge the person we're talking to and think that because their company is a certain capacity, that you're thinking that's a company that's based in technology, therefore the people are going to be based in technology, you're missing the point of connecting with who you really are trying to talk to. So you might say the things that relate to why that company would want something, but you also need to connect with the person you're talking to. So that's why the Bank Pass, which is the online version of what we did with the cards, is something that some people actually use it as part of their info. Well, like if they're working with their clients, they have all their clients do that before they actually have a meeting with them. Coaches and different people will use that as part of their intake form. But you can also, because we've got it set up that it can be done on the phone or on any form like that, you could actually do it even with your friends. When Sherry first started doing this, she'd have people go, I Skyped with my friends in Europe and I held up the cards and I said, tell me what this is. Which one of these is most important to you? So that's why she ended up creating this, so we could send around to people. So we can send it to the client, we can send it to ourselves, and then we also keep an online dashboard, so when you're dealing with your client, you can go back. So it ends up being a solution that, as we say, it's personality-based, it's people-focused, and it's profit-driven. But as you see, we put profit to the end, because we know if we don't connect with the people and build that relationship, you're never going to get the profit out of it, because you really need to know who they are, what's important to them, and how to make that happen. And so we get into what we call power scripting, and I'm just going to quickly kind of go through this so we can talk about questions. So, I do live training, we've got the online version, we've got corporate versions and speaking and stuff. And so, I'm Susan Younger.
You've still got 5 minutes.
Okay, well, I'd rather put it to questions and answers and stuff. I'm Susan Younger, and if there's any way I can help you with that, or if you can think of other people that you think might like to know about Bank, please feel free to send them my way. Yes.
Question from the audience.
Yes.
Can nurturers be salespeople?
Yes.
Could you
In
repeat
fact,
that?
Can nurturers be salespeople?
nurturers can make great salespeople. They just have to get past their feeling that they haven't taken care of the other person's issues in order to ask the question for the sale. So a lot of times, once they feel secure in the fact that they have taken care of everybody that they've taken care of, that the team that's supporting them is taken care of, then they can definitely ask for the sale. But a lot of them, it has to be developed in them that it's not about an ugly conversation. It's about a caring, I'm doing something that helps this person achieve what they want in their life.
And coming back to what you said in the beginning, the nurturer still has to speak to the other person.
Yes.
Their way of speaking.
Right. Right. In the same way an action needs to talk to a nurture. You know, an action can't just go in and go, hey, woohoo, let's do this, and act like, and never actually look at a nurture. A nurture, you've got to connect eye to eye. If you don't connect eye to eye, heart to heart with a nurture, you're going to lose them in a heartbeat. They're going to think that you are a shyster who's out for, you know, they just want the bottom line. If you only talk about money and you don't talk about why it's good at serving something to a nurture, you're going to lose them. And then when you start looking at the 24 codes, it's also a gradation between that, because I'll give you mine. I'm a high nurture, but my action and knowledge are right behind it. They're only about a point different behind it. And there are days when I know my knowledge leads my action, and there are days where my action leads my knowledge. My blueprint, you can take and kick it to the curb. You know, I'm the one who's the least likely to go, oh yeah, I got to do it exactly this way. I'll skip around a system if I think I can get to the results I want faster. So through things like that, people think because my background was architecture that I must have a high blueprint. And it's like, no, I just figured out I had to deal with the things that are blueprint in order to do what I do. So I was taking some of these things and integrating them in how I work, but I wasn't able to explain to others why I was able to do that. And once I met Sherry, it was like, okay, this all makes sense. This is why, for me, it was easy to integrate the teams that I was working on. Like when you said I've done a lot of different things, that's that nurture and that action, kind of wanting, you know, I needed the excitement of doing something that I was really passionate about that I felt was good. And if it felt like it wasn't good, that's part of why I got out of corporate. It didn't feel good to me anymore. And I went into the doing massage, which I knew I could do one-to-one. So this allows me to look at something and say, I can work in the corporate environment because I can explain to them how they can get a better connection in their teams. How within a corporation you can see teams that can't even talk to each other. You know, a marketing team that can't talk to a sales team, that can't talk to the guys that are building the product. But yet they all need to be able to talk to each other in order to put that product at its best advantage in front of a client. And when that can't happen internally, they're losing out as a corporation. So this can help internally as well as externally with conversations. So, yeah.
I'm having a hard time thinking of presenting the 4 cards to a client in, let's say, in a first meeting.
Yeah. Did you have any problem looking at them today when I handed them to you?
This was a different environment.
Okay.
There was no expectation of a sale, really.
But you're also a nurturer. So part of that ends up being I don't want to inconvenience them.
Right.
But if you were talking to an action, it's all about you're telling them how cool they are. All of a sudden you go, hey, look at this fun thing. You know, it's going to show us quickly how to communicate better. If I do this, I can really cut the time we have to spend together.
Okay.
You know, so you start looking at something, and we call it speed coding. When you start to walk into a room and you start to look at people and you go, action. You know, they're the ones that have got all the logos, all the high design. They really want to be seen.
I mean, I remember early in my business development career learning when you walk into someone's office, you scan.
Yeah.
You look for sports memorabilia,
Right.
pictures of their family,
Right.
all that kind of stuff. And you begin to, quote, stereotype them to some degree, but you try to understand how can I have an initial conversation that will relate to them and get on a nurturing basis.
Right. But see, some of that is speed coding, but when you take and you do the speed coding, you can sometimes miss something because
Right.
they may have decided they should do those things because they think that's going to connect better. Whereas with the cards, and you make it all about who they are, in 90 seconds they've told you what staring at everything on the walls and everything around them may not tell you. Also, the fact is, a lot of times in those environments anymore, they've been told what they can and can't put out.
True.
So you may walk into an environment where they've been told they really can't have a lot of pictures. They can't have a lot of the things that in the past. Or when they're working at a 4-foot station versus an 8x8 room,
Right.
there's a lot less to tell you about.
Okay.
You know, so it's the speed of it. It's the rapid nature that it starts to become easy. And that's why also to be able to have it as an intake form online where you can, you know, it's a free printout for whoever you're doing it with. The company pays a certain, you know, monthly fee to have it, but they could do 10 or they could do 110. They could do 100,000. There's no limit to the number of codes they could run. So it becomes something that you don't have to feel like people are going to not want to know who they are.
Right.
And that's really what you're asking them to look at, is who are they? And it just helps you to communicate better with them. Any other questions?
Do you, kind of piggybacking off of his, if you're handing people cards, do you ever get negative feedback? Because I just think about my first reaction was kind of like, eh.
Really? Yeah.
Right.
Like,
And-
this is a salesperson trying to identify me, but she's speaking, so I'm gonna go play along. But like, if it was like in a meeting, I might just kind of look at him and just be like, that's I'm ex-intel
No.
too.
Well,
So the idea of giving myself
let me
away is.
piggyback on her piggyback. So just recently, I did
This is
an
getting
enhanced
really weird
mailing
imagery.
recently, and oddly enough, and most of these mails went out to presidents, vice presidents, CEOs of companies. So I got a response back from a president. So I picked up the phone and called him because he said yes. I can't imagine in that circumstance say, hey, before we have this conversation, I'd like to email you these 4 cards. I'm not sure exactly how well.
And that's part of where the speed coding
Okay.
portion comes in. And part of the fact that they actually came back to you, you already got a clue from what you
Right,
sent them.
that's right.
As a response.
Right.
So if you were really trained in the bank,
Okay.
you'd start to go, okay, they responded to these questions. And if you looked at that very first one where I said, let me hand you this information, it will allow us to get to know each other better. I gave, each one of those statements was directed towards one of the codes. So put them in order, most important to you to least important to you. That's a blueprint person who wants to know, what am I supposed to do and how am I supposed to order it? Doing it fast, gives us an answer quick, is something that the action person wants to know, this isn't going to take me any time. The knowledge person wanted to know that these values identified who they are and all the information that was there. The nurture person, it was about getting to know them and getting to know me. So
I think, Randy, you could probably structure it to like an existing email list in the form of like a fun quiz.
Right. Yeah.
Where you would present it with like education. So let's say taking the video and saying, hey, we've recorded this way to interact with your employees and your salespeople. And oh, by the way, as a fun part, why don't you take the quiz? And then you could tag it in your CRM system.
And the thing is, because they're going to get an additional report about themselves, we've really found nobody really says no. They're the ones that will balk. You can normally say it's going to be somebody who's a knowledge. Knowledge is going to be high. So even though action was high for you, my guess is knowledge is right behind it.
Yeah. Just tested that way before.
So you start to be able to see who's going to be the least likely. That's going to give you a clue to begin with. So if you had somebody completely reject it, you'd know to talk knowledge and then blueprint.
Okay. Any other final questions? Well, I'd like to thank you, Susan, for a great presentation.
Appreciate that. And yeah, it's like I said when I was kind of promoting this. I used to do multi-billion-dollar outsourcing transactions at Accenture, and even though we didn't use bank, we used the assessment of the people we were selling to, because when you're doing large deals, you know, so maybe you're not doing large deals, but understanding who you're talking to and understanding how to connect is critical. So appreciate, Susan, you sharing that with us, and that was awesome. Couple of things, just housekeeping things.